Hey, what's up? How's it going? Welcome back to a new video and welcome to the Combat Ready HQ channel. Today we're going to be looking at another well-requested video by the Fat Electrician. We're looking at America obliterates half of Iran's navy in 8 hours. Operation Praying Mantis. The last video I did on the Fat Electrician, I believe it's Nick over there, did really well. Lots of comments. You all really enjoyed it by the looks of it. And he's just been highly requested. And I did find his videos very interesting. So really looking forward to this one and watching more of his videos. But be sure to go and check his channel out, subscribe, like his videos. It really helps him out. And remember to like, subscribe, notifications bell on this channel. It really helps me out and I appreciate the support. So let's get into it then. We know that between America and Iran there's a lot of history. I know this is quite a few years ago, around 88 I think it was. Let's get into it, see what happens, comment with what your thoughts are, what you think of the video and what you think of the operation. Let's go.
Ah yes, the time that the US Navy got upset and destroyed half of Iran's entire naval fleet in a single 8-hour workday.
Crazy, isn't it, what America can actually do?
Today we're talking about Operation Praying Mantis. But real quick, this video is sponsored by Zydax Custom Gaming PCs. They are all built right here in America with American-based tech support and a lifetime warranty. It's the computer that I use and the one that I would recommend. I'll have them linked down below if you want to check them out. Let's get to this video. All right, important background info. 1980, Iraq decided to invade Iran. Why? Don't really care. Not pertinent to the story. However, at the end of that war, Iran decides, hey, we're going to pull a page out of the old Art of War by Sun Tzu. We're going to cut off the enemy supply lines, deprive the enemy of nice things. It's going to work out great. Iraq's got a weak navy. We're going to wipe out their navy, and then every time they send out an oil tanker through the Persian Gulf, we're going to blow that up. So they can't sell any liquid dinosaur. They can't make any money. They go broke. We win the war. Hooray. It's a solid plan.
It is, if you think about it, quite a solid plan in a way that, you know, they have a really weak navy compared to yours. So obviously take out that. It's sort of an easy sort of target operation, wipe that out. Then that's them sort of done on the navy side. And then you do obviously what we would do as well when it comes to the British. You would target the enemy supply chain. What's going to affect them a lot is obviously money, income. Don't have income, can't get new equipment, ammunition, you know, uniforms, weapon systems, all sorts. So if you take away their money, then, you know, it is a solid plan. Well, it's not exactly a solid plan, but it is a good plan because exactly what we would do, take out the supply chains.
So they do exactly that. Then Kuwait comes out of left field and they're like, hey, we've been financially backing Iraq through this entire war for the past 7 years. We need to make sure they win so we can get our money back. So we're going to go ahead and let Iraq use our oil tankers to export oil. So Iran is like, well, that's an easy problem to solve. I'll just blow up all the Kuwaiti oil tankers as well, which is exactly what they do. But here's the catch.
Before we go on, Iran just do not care, do they? They will just... If they want to, they will just go after everyone and anyone. If they're not happy, you know about it, and they will let you know.
Kuwait at this point in time is like the one major exporter of oil that wasn't really part of OPEC, meaning that they were selling oil on the global market significantly cheaper than everybody else, driving down the entire oil market. And now that their oil tankers are getting blown up as well, it means that Kuwait can no longer sell oil on the cheap, meaning that Iran has now inadvertently committed the cardinal sin of the late 20th century, raising gas prices.
Cheers, Iran.
Now the entire Western world looks over at the Persian Gulf like, the fuck? The ghost of Sun Tzu's sitting there shaking his head like that's the one exception. I would have messed with any supply line except for that one because we all know what happens next.
No one likes that, as they call it in America, gas. We don't like our petrol prices going up. No one likes it. Oh, here they come.
Yeah, America then proceeds to assemble the largest naval convoy operation since World War II, send them into the Persian Gulf to protect Kuwaiti oil tankers. It is at this moment that Iran should have been like, well, that's unfortunate, time to figure out plan B because this obviously is not going to work out. However, they decide that they're going to double down. What they're going to do is they're going to take a bunch of magnetic underwater mines and they're just going to spread them out all over the Persian Gulf in international waters, and that's not going to have any consequences.
Are you even allowed to do that? Even when it was back in the 80s, 88, were you allowed to put underwater mines? I thought that was now illegal, you know, with all the treaties that had been signed. Obviously, I wasn't in the Navy, not really clued up on this, so please comment below what your thoughts are. But I actually don't think that has been allowed for a very long time. Very naughty of them and very sneaky, and something that would obviously massively upset the Americans. They're already, peed off that you took away the oil. You never mess around with Americans and oil, because they're not too fussed about sticking their nose in either, a bit like Iran. But yeah, comment below.
At all. So fast forward, April 14th, 1988, the USS Samuel B. Roberts, a guided missile frigate, which is basically brand new at this point, this is like its first big operation, is out there escorting a Kuwaiti oil tanker, and it runs into a minefield, hits a mine, blows up the keel of the ship. The keel is this bottom part right here. It supports and stabilizes the structure of the entire ship, and it gets blown completely in half. At this point, the only thing holding this boat together is the actual deck. 1 second.
So straight away, can you imagine being on that ship, first major operation of that ship, that goes off, the keel's, blown out, the deck's just holding it together. Can you imagine what is going through those sailors' minds, what they're having to do, action stations, getting life jackets, lifeboats, whatever it is they have on a naval ship, and whatever it is their SOPs are. Can you imagine what's going through those sort of sailors' minds? It's got to be pretty scary.
Everything's fine. The next second, there's a 15-foot wide hole in the bottom of your ship. Everything's on fire and water is rushing in. The USS Samuel B. Roberts took on half of its weight in water in the first minute. This is a catastrophic amount of damage that would sink 99% of ships, but as fate would have it, the crew of the USS Samuel B. Roberts had already been winning competitions for having the best damage control crew in the Navy. So the entire crew gets to work. They're putting out fires, they're plugging holes, they're literally cinching the hull together with steel cables trying to stabilize it, because the only thing holding it together is a deck at this point. Over the course of the next 5 hours, the entire crew fights their ass off and somehow manages to get the situation under control and limp the ship all the way back to Dubai, where they can get it to a port.
Hats
and
off to
the most
the sailors.
incredible part of all of it, not a single American was killed. Only 10 men were injured during the fire and the initial explosion. So
That's
the crew
impressive.
survived. The boat's
Good for them.
basically completely destroyed. Then America sends in an underwater crew, figure out what happened. They find the remnants of the mine. They check out the other mines. Yep, they're Iranian. At this point, now somebody has to inform the president, because this is a big deal. And the president at this point in time is, let me check my notes, fucking Ronald Reagan.
I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
So they go ahead and they brief Ronald Reagan on everything that happened. He's super happy that everybody survived, and he's like, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to issue a proportional response. And what the U.S. Navy heard was, awesome. All right, so here's...
Working with the Americans in the past, knowing how they worked in Afghan, their proportionate response is completely different to what the British would do. First of all, let's go back to the Iranians actually putting the underwater mines and having them linked back to them. Most probably isn't the smartest of move. Can most be quite hard to... Well, it wouldn't be too hard. I'm sure you could have found some mines somewhere that wouldn't link back to you, because obviously it's really going to pee off the Americans. And secondly, the Americans like to blow things up. I remember in Afghan, especially when it was sort of getting to the back end where rules of engagement were really sort of tight, collateral damage was a big one. They really didn't want much collateral damage. The UK were very sort of careful in using sort of light guns, artillery shells, dropping bombs. The Americans were still like, nah. And they were just still firing so many sort of artillery rounds and dropping bombs compared to the UK. So I can imagine how this is going to go.
the plan. Iran currently has 3 oil rigs in the Persian Gulf that are not being used for drilling oil, but as military bases for their naval operations. So the US Navy is going to go ahead and take out all 3 of those. Now, I don't really know what the guided missile frigate to oil rig exchange ratio is, but we're going to go ahead and err on the side of caution and say that it's not quite proportional enough yet.
Proportional.
So Iran also really only has like 2 modern naval vessels. That's the Iranian frigate Sahand and the Iranian frigate Sabatland. They're going to go ahead and take out at least one of those, maybe both. We'll see how proportional they want to get. And then by the time they get all that done, that should be a nice 8-hour workday. It'll be time to clock out and go get some ice cream. So in order to get all this done by quitting time, they're going to go ahead and establish 3 different surface attack groups. Each group is going to have 2 destroyers and 1 bonus ship, That bonus ship is either going to be an amphibious landing ship or a frigate. Either way, they're all going to be identified as Bravo, Charlie, and Delta. Bravo Group is tasked with taking out 2 oil rigs, Charlie Group is tasked with taking out the 1 remaining oil rig, and Delta's mission is to go hunt down those 2 frigates and take them out. And then,
so we got 3 oil rigs and 2 frigates.
Just for insurance purposes, we're also going to have the USS Enterprise parked right outside the Persian Gulf to provide air support, in case we need it. So, April 18th, 1988, 4 days after the mining of the USS Samuel B. Roberts, Operation Praying Mantis goes into full swing, and Bravo Group shows up at their oil rig first. At which point, they radio over to the oil rig and inform them that they will be blowing it up in 5 minutes and that they should all leave. So, a bunch of people start leaving. They hop in tugboats and take off. Bravo Group, seeing that they're making an honest effort to actually evacuate, agrees to give them 15 more minutes. So, fast forward 20 minutes later, they send out another radio message, hey, time's up. They then fire the 5-inch guns right over the top of the oil rig with the rounds set to airburst, hopefully scaring off any stragglers. And it is at this point that some Iranian military member decides that he is going to audition to be the main character of this story because he hops on a 23mm anti-aircraft gun and opens fire on Bravo Group. And without
it's gonna get naughty, this.
Skipping a beat, one of the 5-inch guns on one of the destroyers just goes poof, and just fucking direct hit smokes this dude. Barely touches the rest of the oil rig. This guy, definitely not the main character, but the silver lining, he at least made it into the credits as Baloney Miss Cloud #1. Now, obviously I'm paraphrasing here, but at this point, Bravo Group radios over to the oil rig one last time, something along the lines of, hey, does anybody else need to find out what it's like to chew 5 gum? Or are you fuckers ready to quit? The oil rig finally radios back and is like, yeah, please cease fire, we're gonna leave. So all the Iranian military members leave. Bravo Group decides to open up on it for a little bit with the 5-inch guns before sending over a couple of Hueys full of Marines. The Marines hop out, place some demo charges, hop back on the helicopters, take off. The entire oil rig blows up, and already things are getting more proportional.
Pretty proportional, 1 ship for another ship at the minute, and it's good of them that they did obviously allow everyone to leave before blowing it up. Don't want any casualties.
And
I want to quickly share what for me has been a hugely positive habit, and that's speaking to a therapist using better.
While all that was happening, Charlie Group made it to their first oil rig as well, and pretty much the exact same thing played out. The only differences were Charlie Group didn't have Marines to place the demo charges, they had Navy SEALs, and when the Iranians opened up with the 23mm anti-aircraft guns, they just decided to keep firing 5-inch shells at the oil platform until it burst into flames and burnt the entire thing to the ground. At which point, the commander of the destroyer kind of looks over at the Navy SEAls and is like, sorry, I guess you guys get to sit this one out.
Oh, mission got canceled? Good.
And while all that's going down, Bravo Group's already making their way over to the 3rd oil rig, at which point they pick up something on radar, and it's definitely another enemy ship headed right towards them. And at this point, you have to remember, this is the late 1980s. None of the American sailors have seen naval warfare on this scale. The pucker factor is on. They are getting harpoon missiles ready, and they are about to get in like one of the biggest naval fights since World War II.
And I can actually imagine that happening. Like, you train, I don't know, Marines, Navy SEALs, soldiers, sailors to do a job. And sometimes that job is hunting people down, hunting things down, attacking, and they get excited and they want it to happen. Trust me, being ex-army, I know what it's like. You're going on an op, you're going to get deployed out here. You get all excited because it's all you want to do. It's what you joined for. It's what you train for. And then it gets called off. And in like this case, like I said, it didn't really happen back then. So they all get excited and they just want to fire as much as they can. They all want to get involved. So that's actually what it's like. That's the mentality. And that's what it is really like, because that's what you join for and that's what you train for. We don't train and join and go, oh yeah, but I hope it actually doesn't happen. Sadly, we actually do. You want it to happen. You want these big sort of fights sometimes. Be careful what you pray for or wish for, but you do. That's what you join for.
At which point, whoever's in charge of Bravo Group decides to take a deep breath, and they're like, okay, let's send up a helicopter real quick just to verify that it's actually an enemy ship. So the helicopter goes up, radios back to Bravo Group. It's definitely a warship, but it's a Soviet destroyer. At which point, everybody's like, what? What is happening right now? So they radio over to this Russian destroyer, and they're like, what are your intentions? And the Russian commander radios back in broken English. I swear to God, this is a real quote.
No way. What?
I'm just here to take pictures for history. Look, I know that I bash on the Soviet Union and communism every single chance I get, but this time around, I gotta give it to them. These guys know how to party. Just straight up rolling into the middle of the largest naval operation since World War II to eat popcorn and watch. It's incredible. At this point, Iran finally figures out that there's something going on, but they don't really know what, so they just begin attacking any ship they can find, and the first ship they found was a civilian cargo ship called the Willie Tide, that they begin attacking with Boghammer-style speedboats. So the Willie Tide radios for help, the USS Enterprise responds by sending up a bunch of A6 intruders, as well as F-14 Tomcats. The A6 intruders show up, start dropping cluster bombs, they end up hitting one of the speedboats and scattering the rest. The civilian cargo ship is saved, hooray. Cutting back to Charlie Group, now there's an Iranian fast attack ship coming right at them. So they radio over like, hey, yeah, we're kind of going around blowing up all your stuff, but also we've got a very specific list, you're not on it, so how about you just go away and we'll forget we saw you. The Iranian fast attack ship messages back, sounds good, we'll do that. And then they just keep driving right towards them. And then this Iranian fast attack ship gets within like 15 miles of Charlie Group, which is like point blank range for a naval battle.
15 miles, that's pretty close when it comes to sort of naval distances. Obviously, for the army, that's miles. Yeah, we do obviously engage targets if you've got someone that's got eyes on, but for the Navy, I believe that is very close. Correct me on that if I'm wrong, but even he said it's point blank range. I feel that isn't exaggerated, that is correct.
Charlie Group radios again, dude, what are you doing? To which they respond, I'm following orders. And then they proceeded to lock their radar on Charlie Group, which Charlie Group can see. At which point Charlie Group immediately launches 5 missiles directly at the Iranian vessel. The Iranian vessel fires a harpoon missile back at Charlie Group. Both groups now have missiles in the air screaming towards one another. The Americans launch countermeasures, shooting up chaff rockets that end up catching the harpoon missile, detonating it in midair. The Iranian vessel, on the other hand, did not have any countermeasures capable of stopping the newer technology behind the American missiles, and it would end up getting sunk pretty much immediately. Then, before anybody can really even fully digest what just happened, radar picks up 3 Iranian F-4s screaming towards Charlie Group. Charlie Group then turns, fires a bunch of surface-to-air missiles at the F-4s. The F-4s see them coming. They're like, oh shit. They pop a U-turn and try to outrun them. F-4s, while they are extremely fast, can't outrun missiles, so one of the missiles ends up blowing a wing off one of the F-4s. Now America has taken out an entire naval vessel and an F-4 that they did not plan on taking out, and it's throwing off all of our proportions. And because of that,
it's what you call, this has escalated quickly, but it's what happens. No plan survives contact. You can go with a plan, but that initial contact will throw it all off. And that is exactly what's happened here, because you don't know exactly how they're going to respond. You can't just throw your weight around without anyone obviously coming back at you. It's just sadly the Iranians just don't have enough to come back at them with.
That American leadership orders Bravo Group to stand down. We're not going to go take out that 3rd oil rig. And right as soon as that order gets given out, Delta Group chimes in, is like, hey, we found that frigate we were looking for. So now nobody knows what to do, because on one hand, things are already getting out of control, but on the other hand, we really want to take out these frigates. So American leadership decides, well, we might not even have to make a hard decision. Maybe that's not even the frigate and the radar's wrong. Why don't you go ahead and send a couple of A6 intruders over, do a flyby. They can verify that it's actually this new modern frigate, and if it is, we'll make a decision from there. Or so they thought, because the A6 pilots are about to decide that they are in fact the main characters of this story. You see, the USS Enterprise and its aircraft aren't really supposed to be doing a whole lot. They're more or less just there for insurance. In fact, they're only allowed to engage the enemy under one of 2 conditions. One, the President of the United States signs off on it, which is actually what happened with the speedboats earlier. Or 2, they get fired upon first. So they got told to go fly by this boat to verify that it is in fact the new modern frigate, but they didn't get told how to fly by the boat, so they drop down 50 feet above the water and just gun it, and they buzz the entire ship. So the ship opens fire with its AA guns, but these planes are so low to the water, the AA guns can't actually aim down low enough, so all the anti-aircraft fire goes right over the top of them. They continue to stay low enough till they get out of anti-aircraft gun range, and then they pull up, at which point the ship launches a bunch of surface-to-air missiles at them. They drop chaff as a countermeasure, takes care of those, no big deal. They then go around, do a U-turn, send a radio message to this frigate, I'm going to sink you now. Which they can now legally do, because remember, the ship fired on them first.
You fell victim to one of the classic blunders.
So the A6 fires an anti-ship harpoon missile, and the second they pull the trigger on that, the fire control team from the USS Enterprise is like, what the fuck are you doing? We're not supposed to be killing things yet. And the A6s are like, look, they fired at us first. Them's the rules. And the USS
Didn't they, so Buzzing's obviously just coming in close. So obviously they've come in close, Iranians have panicked and then engaged, which then obviously gives the A6s, that card alpha as we call it, self-defense. You know, if you feel that your life or anyone else's life is an immediate threat or danger, then you can engage, which is what they are doing. Very clever of the A6 pilots and very great flying to be able to do that low.
Enterprise is like, holy shit, okay, I guess. Let them have it. Then the harpoon missile finally makes impact. It's a bullseye. The A6s do a U-turn, go, drop another 500-pound laser-guided bomb right through the deck of this frigate, fly past it, do another U-turn, come back, drop a 1,000-pound bomb on it. Then they radio over to the Enterprise and like, yeah, it's definitely going to sink. We're going to head back. So the
sink, that would have completely destroyed that 500-pounder and a 1,000-pounder. Massive. Pretty ballsy flying by the sounds of it as well by the A6 pilots.
A6s take off, headed back to the Enterprise, and like 5 minutes later, Delta Group shows up with their warships and begin firing on the already sinking frigate. They hit the magazine, the frigate explodes, rapidly sinks to the ocean floor. At this point, naval leadership is like, okay, Jesus Christ, everybody stop killing things. We need to figure out what all happened. We got to keep this proportional, remember.
Proportional.
This is a design cube. It's free and will help you improve your molded part design.
So they start radioing back and forth. Everybody's figuring out what everybody did, if anybody's hurt, what's going on, the whole story. And then as the A6s are making their way back to the USS Enterprise, guess what they happen to fly past? The other modern frigate. So now the entire US Navy's looking at this last frigate like SpongeBob looking at a jug of water.
I don't need it.
But also, like, realistically speaking, the A6s are pretty much out of ammunition. The only thing they have left are 2,000-pound bombs, and those just aren't going to be enough by themselves without a harpoon missile to take down this ship anyways, so they really are just going to fly by and verify that it's the modern frigate. So the A6 intruders go ahead, they do their flyby. It is in fact the new frigate that they thought it was, and it does in fact open fire on the A6s. A6s make it out completely unscathed, at which point they pop a U-turn, and one of the A6 pilots is like,
It's the bullseye womp rats in my T-16 back home.
So the A6 pulls up, gaining altitude, and then dives down, aims its nose right at the frigate at like a 35-degree angle. They're doing a good old-fashioned dive bombing run like it's fucking World War II. The AA guns start firing, there's bullets whizzing past the plane, but they're committed now. They're closing in, closing in. The bombardier behind the pilot lets the pilot know, hey, I'm locked on. At which point, bombs away, the pilot pulls up, and the bomb goes right down the fucking smokestack of this boat. Blows up, completely destroying the entire engine room. That frigate is now dead in the water with no power. The A6 is...
Can you imagine, right, what's going through your head as a pilot? The way he talks about it is absolutely brilliant. But can you imagine just no diving, 35-degree angle towards a ship that's firing back at you, and most probably is capable of taking you out if it hits you, okay? If it gets rounds on target. And just the two of you just flying a few hundred miles an hour towards this ship. Like, can you imagine like the feelings that you're going through and what like your facial expressions like, man, we've got this, let's go. That is some balls, I'm telling you. Ali.
Go ahead and radio in that they have completely disabled this frigate, at which point the American leadership calls a complete ceasefire. They're going to go ahead and let that frigate survive, get towed off, potentially be repaired. With the US Navy having a...
Like I said, I don't actually know too much about Navy as well. Never did naval gunfire. I actually thought a 1,000-pounder would have done more damage than that. You know, I thought took out the engine room and obviously it's disabled, but it didn't actually completely destroy it and sink it, which I thought, you know, would be more close to the sort of damage estimate. But, you know, that's what's good about these videos. You learn.
Effectively disabled or destroyed over half of Iran's functioning navy, the US military decides to call it a good day, ends Operation Praying Mantis, we all get to live happily ever after. Except, later that night, Iran decided that they wanted to fight a little bit more, and they launched a bunch of Silkworm anti-ship missiles at American vessels. Luckily, no American vessels were actually hit. However, this is now a huge political problem because America has been mad at the fact that Iran even had Silkworm missiles for years at this point, and the American government has made it very clear to Iran that if they ever used them, they would be going to war with America, period. That's set in stone. So the Reagan administration, not wanting to kick off World War III in the 1980s, reaches out to the Iranian government and is like, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go ahead and admit that that was an accident. I'm going to sweep it under the rug and we're never going to talk about it again. Because if this makes headline news and the American people find out, I'm going to have to get real proportional around here. So Iran's like, okay, fine.
So that is obviously very lucky that those rounds didn't actually hit and cause any casualties or fatalities, because obviously this would be a completely different story. We could be living in a completely different world and it could have changed massively if they did land on target and did cause casualties and fatalities. You can sweep it under the rug because obviously no Americans have died, but can you imagine if it was the other way round, how it would have looked and what would have happened, because the Americans would not have let it go, and which fair rightly they shouldn't have. They shouldn't do if you do obviously, take on casualties or fatalities.
Fine, whatever, it was an accident, let's sweep that whole thing under the rug. But I am still going to take America to international court to try to prove that it was a war crime to take out my oil rigs. That way I can get reparations and make America pay for it. So they go to international court, they lay out the case. The international court is looking at America like, okay, well, first of all, you're the fraction people. I don't know how you think that this is proportional, but it definitely wasn't. Second of all, according to the Amity Act, you absolutely should not have attacked their oil rigs. This is probably a war crime. At which point the representative for America is like, well, actually, if you read the Amity Treaty between Iran and the United States, it only talks about ships and boats. It don't say shit about oil rigs, meaning I wasn't obligated to not attack those oil rigs. At which point the court is like, hold on. Fucking, he's right, son of a bitch. Okay, well, I guess America's innocent, because I've said it once and I'll say it again. It's never a war crime the first time. And now for the best part of the entire story. America now proceeds to go over to Dubai, pick up what's left of the USS Samuel B. Roberts, tow it all the way back to Maine, then take the ship out of the water, get it in dry dock, cut out the entire damaged section of the ship, including the engine compartment, build another module to fit in its place. This thing weighs like 300 tons. They jack it up, weld it right where it's at, get everything rehooked up, reconnected. And this boat is back out on the ocean 1 year later on April 1st, 1989.
What a
it
tow
then goes
that
on
is.
to get recommissioned and serves in the Navy until 2015. I mean, playing Battleship against America's gotta suck, right? Like, haha, I've sunk your frigate, and America's like, first of all, no you didn't. Second of all, fuck your entire Navy, as it picks up your board and just throws it at the wall. So in conclusion, if you do ever find yourself being the leader of a foreign nation one day, the best advice that I can possibly give you is A, do whatever you can to not raise gas prices, and B, whatever you do not fuck with America's boats. We do not like that shit. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is like, comment, subscribe, maybe go buy some merch at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang, out.
Nice. So, there is not going to be anything at the end of this one. Really enjoyed that. I think he's absolutely brilliant. Quick question though, how long does it take to tow a US frigate from Dubai back to mainland USA? Can someone let me know how long that would have took? Yeah, absolutely love this guy. Brilliant videos. Time and effort obviously is immense of what he puts into his videos, so make sure you go and check him out, like and subscribe, give him a follow. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let us know what you'd like to see next. I think we could be living in a very different world if that had gone a different way. Did anything get brought up in court around the Iran taking out Iraq and Kuwaiti oil rigs? Most probably not. And obviously we know what the Americans are like and we know how powerful they are. You always see these power comparisons, and we do have to say you've got to be careful going up against America. They have a massive defense budget. Numbers and personnel is huge, and when it comes to kit and equipment, we know they are by far up there when it comes to technology. So you have got to be careful when going up against America, and they do work differently when it comes to the UK. Like I said, their rules of engagement are different. They are and do get away with a lot more of when it comes to sort of collateral damage and dropping sort of artillery and bombs. So very impressive video. I really enjoyed that. Let us know what your thoughts are. Remember to like, subscribe, turn notifications bell on, and I'll see you in the next video.